Back in the summer of 2001, my family and I were staying at our summer home in Florida. I was 12 at the time and my sister was 9. So this was when we were still just babies. This one night, I believe it was about 10 days after we had arrived, my sister and I were reading books in the family room since we were sort of grounded. Dad had given us an assignment during the day and we hadn't finished that. We were too busy playing video games and also swimming in the pool the whole day. Anyway, it was about 7 in the evening when someone knocked on our door relentlessly. I got up to get the door because I was bored, but Dad told me to stay put. I followed him to the door, trailing him by about a couple of yards. At the door, a woman could be heard screaming for help. I could see Dad hesitating whether or not to open the door. I didn't understand it at the time. I couldn't understand why he wouldn't just help the lady. But today, I get it. I feel the same way if I had my family with me and something like that would happen. In any event, Dad opened the door after a few seconds, then the lady from the outside barged in and slammed the door shut. She was bleeding heavily from her forehead. A few seconds passed as the lady tried to catch her breath, then said, "I'm being followed by some crazy people who are trying to kill me. Please, you have to help me." Dad asked her if she knew the assailants, but the lady kept asking him if he owned a gun and that he should call the police. Dad tried to calm her down and told her that she was safe with us, but the lady became more agitated by the second. A minute or two went by and Dad was walking toward the phone in the living room when the window by the front door was shattered. Dad shouted to us to go upstairs, then told Mom and the lady to do the same. Mom took us to the bedroom upstairs, she locked the door, then pushed the armoire in front of the door with the help of the lady. All the while we heard windows being shattered, people screaming outside, and the four walls of the house being peppered with rocks and other projectiles. Mom called the cops as soon as the door was blocked with the armoire. During the phone call, we heard several gunshots going off downstairs. We could only pray that it was Dad shooting at the assailants and not the other way around. I'm not exactly sure how long, but at least 5 minutes had passed when we heard the police siren in the distance and it all went quiet downstairs. We heard Dad's voice after a few minutes. It seemed like he was speaking to the cops. Not long after, we heard a voice outside of the door. It was a police officer and he was assuring us that it was okay for us to come out. We got the door open, but the officer told our mom to keep the children upstairs. Another officer stayed with us in the room while the first officer at the door escorted Mom and the lady downstairs. I didn't really know exactly what happened at the time. Mom and Dad didn't tell us much since we were so young. I got the full story when I turned 18 and I finally understood why my parents kept the details of that night as obscure as they could. Basically, the lady who asked us for help was a random victim like us. She was taking a walk at night when 6 men began throwing things at her from inside a van. She ran, they followed, and that's how she ended up in front of our house. The thugs apparently got off their van not too far off from our driveway. Then they followed the lady to our house. They started throwing things at our house and also smashing the windows with their baseball bats. Not long after, Dad got his gun and began shooting at the assailants. Unfortunately, they too had guns and they fired back. A bullet had grazed Dad's shoulder, but he wasn't too badly hurt. Dad did end up hitting 3 of the 6 assailants, but none of them died from the gunshot wounds. They all had survived. 3 of the injured punks were arrested at a hospital at night, and the other 3 were apprehended at a gas station the next morning. Apparently, they were all high as a kite from the assortment of drugs and alcohol they had taken that night. All 6 of them were charged with multiple offenses, and they all ended up behind bars. As for Mom and Dad, I'm sure they were traumatized from the incident, but I never once felt that they had changed in any negative manner. The same goes for me and my sister, as we really didn't see much of the happenings of that night. We heard screams and gunshots. It was scary as hell, but we didn't experience anything that could scar us for life. All thanks to our parents, of course. Hence, the moral of the story is, don't do drugs, boys and girls. There's a corner deli grocery store about a block away from my apartment. I go to the store almost every day to buy a pack of cigarettes or a bottle of Coke. I've moved to this neighborhood about a month ago, and going to the store in the morning has been part of my daily routine ever since. In any event, I was late in the morning the other day, so I went directly to work instead of dropping by the store. I had about a half a pack of cigarettes, and that was enough to keep my nicotine addiction in check during work hours. After work, I took the subway home, as I do. I normally listen to music during commute, but on that day, I had something else that kept me entertained for the duration of the ride. It was a woman. Not just a woman, she was the hottest thing I had seen in years. And best of all, she kept flirting with me throughout the entire ride home. This is what she did. She kept looking at me, smiled at me, and bit her lips a few times like she was ready to get it on the train. I thought about going over to her and asking her out. I was really tempted. But then I remembered that I live with 2 roommates and I barely get to save $200 a month with my current lowly salary. When you owe close to 100 grand in student loan and make pittance because you weren't able to get a job for the degree you've earned, you're not really in a position to be dating and enjoying life. You just gotta grind away at life until you're free from the shackles of loan your college had awarded you along with a useless diploma. Hence, I enjoyed the 40 or so minutes of flirtation, then got off the subway car at my stop without speaking to the beautiful woman. Out on the streets, I went directly to the deli grocery to pick up a pack of cigarettes. I was really craving for a smoke at that point. I had smoked the last cigarette before entering the subway. So I'm in the deli grocery and I walk toward the back of the store to grab a bottle of Coke. When I get there, I turn the corner and surprise, surprise, there's the woman. The same beautiful woman who was flirting with me on the train. I was kinda confused because I didn't see her get off the train. It's not like I looked at the train leave after I got off, but it's still weird since she was still seated when I was waiting for the train doors to open. But whatever, I picked up a bottle of Coke, smiled at her, then walked toward the cash register. I was about to ask for a pack of cigarettes, but then saw something that scared the crap out of me. Let me explain. There are 3 monitors inside the cashier's booth. Those monitors display the cash register, the back of the store, and the entrance of the store. The thing is, when I looked at the monitors, the woman was not there, so I turned my head to the right, which would give me a direct view of the woman, and so that she was still there, I was freaked out. I looked at the monitor again, she wasn't there. I turned my head toward the woman again, and she was gone. I walked toward the back of the store to check for myself, and sure enough, she had disappeared into thin air. Somehow, I was the only person seeing the woman, and on top of that, the cameras were not able to capture her. It's been a few days since seeing the woman. Then again, could she even be called a woman? Regardless, I had never been so scared in my life. Just writing about her gives me the creeps. The experience was so traumatic that I don't even look at the passengers on the train anymore. I get on the train, shut my eyes, and don't open it until I count the stops to where I get off. That's how scared I still am. I hope this isn't something like being tagged by a wandering ghost. I don't know anything about the world of spirits, but I think I've read something of that nature in the past. I know that you'll never believe me. No one will believe me. This is the sort of thing you brush off as some urban legend until you experience it firsthand. However, I'm still gonna tell you, ghosts, they are for real. It's either that, or there are people in this world who possess the technology that allows them to teleport to anywhere they like. I don't feel comfortable with either scenario. I wish there was a machine that could erase memories. I really want to forget the other night. My name's Joanna, I'm 32 years old, and I've got a younger brother who loves to travel around the world. His name's Brian, and is 29 years old. If I have to describe him in one word, I think I choose the word adventurous. My brother never stays in one place for too long. Ever since graduating high school, all he did was to work so he could fund his trips around the world. Lucky for him, he was born with what I would call a math brain. He's tremendous with numbers and logic. Brian began computer programming from a young age, and he hit it big with a few apps in his mid-20s. Therefore, by the age of 27, his net worth was in the millions and he had already retired. I should mention, Brian paid off our parents' house mortgage before his retirement. He didn't enjoy staying home, but he loved mom and dad. I imagine Brian was very passionate about his work, but it was nowhere near the love that he had for traveling and experiencing new things. I regularly received postcards in the mail, and they were all from different locations around the world. In some poorer regions where they didn't have postcards, Brian made his own by taking photos of the local area that he was at, then writing some cheesy messages on the back. It was like he missed us and wanted to be with us, but the pull for new adventures was too much for him to resist. So that's my brother in as few paragraphs as possible. So let's fast forward 2 years and a change and talk about the day that he had arrived from a trip in Colombia. It was one day in October 2018. I drove to my parents after work since Brian had come back and we were going to have a family dinner. I walked into the house as I shouted, "Where's my dumbass brother?" Now, normally, Brian would come to the door, give me a hug, and likely bite my head or put me in a headlock. But none of that happened on that day. In fact, he didn't even come say hi until Mom told him to do so. Mom called for Brian to come downstairs, and right away, I could feel there was something gravely wrong with him. And it wasn't just me. I saw it on my parents' faces. They were seriously troubled by the way Brian was acting around us. Brian said hi to me in a monotone voice. He was nothing like the person I've known for the last 29 years. I could sense that he wasn't happy to see me. And that's not to say that I was unhappy, but rather it seemed like there was no emotion in him. He went back upstairs after that and didn't come out of his room until dinner. Things weren't any different during dinner. I asked him why he was acting out of character, and he had this to say: "This may be difficult for you to accept, but you should forget about the old Brian. I think you can say that I had an awakening in Colombia. I found the real me. The old Brian was playful and happy all the time. He really put that out there, did he not? The truth is, however, he was never always happy. He just wanted you to think that. The new Brian, he doesn't have a front. He'll always be straight with you, and this demeanor will reflect that. I understand you'll need time to feel comfortable with these changes, but I'm sure we'll manage as a family." The words that came out of Brian's mouth, they weren't anything like what our Brian would normally utter. I've never once heard him refer to himself in the third person, but more importantly, Brian's never been the serious type. As I've mentioned, he's a very happy and playful individual. I understand that people can change, but to that extent, and in such short amount of time, I don't think that could happen unless you've had a horribly traumatic experience. The kinds of things that people don't even like to talk about. Another possibility would be that he had joined a cult, which is hard to believe since he's the only one in our family who is an atheist. All of our grandparents are Catholic, so are my uncles and cousins. Our entire family on both my father and mother's sides are devout Christians. And yet, my brother never believed in any of that. I don't know what to make of the changes in Brian. I've seen him twice since the family dinner, and those 2 meetings combined, they lasted no more than 10 minutes. I'm yet to see him smile. He mostly speaks in yes or no, and I sense that he doesn't enjoy my company, nor my parents, mind you. He rented an apartment only a few days after he came back. He doesn't go on trips any longer, and according to him, he's got no plans to do so anytime soon. Mom's distressed, Dad's concerned, and I'm disturbed as hell. But what can actually be done in a situation like this? Brian's a grown man. If he says there's nothing to talk about, then it's not like we can force him to speak to us. There's no law which specifies that you have to be nice to your family, thus we haven't got a clue on how to help him. This is no different than losing a brother. Brian's physically present, but he's left his soul in Colombia. This may sound crazy, but I truly believe someone or something else is in control of him. The person who went to Colombia was my brother, but the person who came back is a stranger. I'm certain of that. Hey guys, Dennis here. This outro is merely an update of my personal life, so for those of you who are here for the stories, please feel free to tune out right now. Okay, with that out of the way, it's been a while. There have been lots of changes in my life. I sold my house, moved into a condo, sold my truck, sold a bunch of my toys, and I quit my job. Basically, I've downsized every aspect of my life. Here's the deal. When I came back after working a few years in Chicago, my expectation was that I would settle down in a few years of time. That's why I had bought a house thinking that I would start a family there. The thing is though, I've been single for the last 4 years or so and I'm really happy. I don't see myself getting married, ever. So if I were a wealthy man, then who cares about living alone in a big ass house? But I'm not a wealthy man. Thus, I got rid of the house, which frees me from the mortgage payment and as well as the hefty property tax, which was close to 20k per year for my old property. I did this because I want to do something different with my life. I had to go back to the corporate world to realize that that line of work isn't for me. I didn't like it the first time around, and it wasn't any different the second time around. Currently, I've got 2 job offers, both are in the creative field. I'm not certain that I'll take either since I'm also exploring with the idea of starting my own business. I've got a couple of months to decide, mainly because your employment options start to dwindle fast if you stay unemployed for a few months, but you guys know all that. So, as you can see, I've made some big changes in my life. I'm gonna miss the money that I made from my former company, but I really think this is for the better. The next 2 months, I'm gonna be traveling a bit, but the travels are job related and as well as for market research for a business idea. I'm going to be uploading on this channel again and hopefully more consistently. I think I stopped uploading about 4 months ago. I'm curious to see how many of you still remain interested in my content. It's always nerve-wracking to upload again after a long break, but what can I do? YouTube always comes second to the paychecks that pay the bills. Well, at least it used to. I'm unemployed for now. And that's the story for now. I'll talk to you guys more in the comment section. I hope you are all well. I'll see you on the next one. Goodbye for now.